Alright everyone, welcome back to another video. Last time I left off with Prohibition and Crime, talking about the Prohibition era of the United States, and kind of the crime that followed that. I gotta be careful with that picture. There's, let's just say there is an image there that is a precursor, we call those, that's what we call foreshadowing. But yeah, okay, we're now on to the Golden Decade. The period immediately following a great war is usually a troubled one. Returning peace brings its own problems, and there is not the same patriotic unity which prevailed in wartime. One thinks of the critical period between the Revolution and the ratification of the Constitution, of the Reconstruction years following the Civil War. It was not otherwise in the 1920s. To that decade, such uncomplimentary names have been given as the Roaring Decade, the Era of Wonderful Nonsense, and the Fatuous 20s. But there were some bright spots. Although there was a slight recession around 1921, affecting chiefly the farmers, the general scene was prosperous. This was not caused, as some soured foreign critics supposed, by war profiteering, for the war was actually an economic burden, increasing taxes and public debts and dislocating normal commerce. The chief cause was the rapid multiplication of mechanism in the industry. The automobile, largely a sporting vehicle for the wealthy in the early days of the century, became almost ubiquitous. Trucks and buses cut deeply into the profits of the railroads. New domestic appliances were the rage. Few families were without telephones. Electric refrigerators replaced the icebox, as in turn had replaced the deeper cellar. The movie industry, centered in California, where clear skies and a varied landscape offered the best environment for photography, became a vast amusement enterprise. Radio brought the outside world into the home. The airplane has never become the major carrier of freight, but its speed made it the favorite for mail and passenger service. When Lindenberg made his solo flight to Paris in 1927, it not only made him a folk hero, but also opened a new era in transportation. From the earliest times, Americans had moved to new localities where they could work more profitably. Now, for the first time, millions went south to the Sun Belt of Florida, California, and the mountainous Southwest, where they could play to better advantage. College and university populations grew rapidly, and a high school education came to be regarded as the birthright of anyone who was not a positive dullard. Poverty was not always a barrier. Many students worked in their spare time or during vacation to earn money for their schooling. Okay, they're just going to keep talking, huh? They got a lot to say here. If American literature had its golden age in the years immediately preceding the Civil War, there was a silver age of considerable talent of the 1920s. Experiments in verse ranged from sardonic harshness of Edgar Lee Masters to the romantic enthusiasm of Vachel Lindsay. The best known, perhaps, of the new poets was Robert Frost, who celebrated the country folk north of Boston. Edwin Arlington Robinson, a poet's poet, gained as much critical approval, if not so wide an audience. Amy Lowell of the Imagist school made of verse a pictorial pattern. T.S. Eliot, author of the what? I lost my place. There's a lot a lot of names here. T.S. Eliot, author of The Wasteland, though born in the United States, spent his active years in England. Stephen Vincent Benet won a Pulitzer Prize for his epic of the Civil War, John Brown's Body. Even more noteworthy were the laurels gathered by American writers of fiction. Sinclair Lewis, Pearl S. Buck, William Faulkner, Ernest Hemingway, and John Steinbeck gained the Nobel Prizes in this field, as did the somber Eugene O'Neill in drama. All were critical realists. There was a noteworthy output of biography, but it seemed, at least during the 1920s, most popular when it was slightly cynical. A typical critic of the age was H. L. Mencken. Oh boy, Mencken. Mencken. That sounds about right. Who ridiculed almost everything American, from the complacent conservatives to the idealistic reformer. But the foundations of the prosperous decade were insecure. There was much over speculation on the stock exchange, and a rosette expectation that the days of depression had given way to a permanent plateau of prosperity. The future was to show a very different face. President Coolidge, who might easily have won another term, said in his laconic fashion, "I do not choose to run." And the succession fell to Herbert Hoover, the second, the Secretary of Commerce, former mining engineer and wartime food administrator. He easily defeated Alfred E. Smith, who won New England but could not hold the solid South. For the first time since Reconstruction, several former Confederate states broke from the Democratic ranks to protest the nomination of a candidate who was at once a a Roman Catholic and an associate of Tammany Hall. But Hoover had been in office scarcely 7 months when the nation plunged into a prolonged economic depression. All right, that's all the talking. Yeah, the 1920s. Oh, sorry. My dog wanted to sit up with me, but I had to put him down there. The 1920s is quite the interesting time in world history and American history. You really see how big and loud um, American culture really becomes. Wealth becomes pretty easily attained by a lot of people. The American dream is really realized here, really born from the 1920s. 1920s is such an interesting time in world history, but especially in American history, because of just how much changes during it. You know, you start to move towards. I talked about this in the last video. You start to move towards civil rights really in the 1920s, because of a lot of the um, previous prohibition era, and then into the 20s. People didn't really lose a lot of their feelings towards others, as I may have saw them as before, as hey, look, it's just a fellow person. But now we'll get into the picture. Below, America had become automobile crazy. This is a showroom in Washington, D.C. in 1922. Yeah, and they haven't really mentioned it, but Henry Ford, the Model T, becomes really, really big, becomes the largest car in the United States in terms of sales. I don't think it still is today, but yeah, it was very, very big for its time. And the Model T survives for a long time. They sell that car for a long, long time. It was very, very popular. And it was sold at a reasonable price for even the layman. So a lot of people get cars at this time. And you really see the birth of the American automotive industry in the sense of not just cars being sold and all that, which of course gets very much built in this time, and a little bit further from this time, but also the idea of an uh, America, not just American, America built for the automobile. They eat into the profits of trains and things like that, and a lot of trains start to go out of style because of that. America was a very train-centric nation before, but when you got a car, it gives that individual freedom that you never really had before. You know, you could get on a horse and go walk, or you could just walk for miles. But a car, it lets you go far, and you're free, basically. And that was kind of a lot of people's thoughts. At the very bottom here is new kinds of electrical appliances were also all the rage. This store in Louisville had at least 16 clerks ready to sell the housewife labor-saving devices. Yeah, you know, you get a lot of appliances. The washing machine, the vacuum cleaner, a lot of things that maybe took a lot longer before, now you can do much quicker. And these old washing tubs, I gotta say, they are really nice. If you can ever find one, they're still if it's still in good working order, um, definitely, definitely an amazing device. I would say if you can use it, definitely should. It's way nicer. At the right here is it was the day of the Ziegfeld Follies on Broadway. Claudia Dell was but one of the hundreds of Ziegfeld girls who entertained Broadway audiences in the 1920s. Yeah, Broadway becomes very big. Like I said, Hollywood, California. You know, it's not necessarily Hollywood quite yet, but it will be Hollywood. Um, the movie industry, the theater industry, everything was just so big at this time. And they really dominated popular culture. That's why they think. That's why they think they still have such a strong uh, control on it today. At the left here is another new invention that captivated the country was the radio. Hundreds of people set up ham radio stations. The Radio Shack shown was located in New Paltz, New York in 1922. Yeah, the radio. Ham radio, one of the best devices really ever invented. Um, if you can get a ham radio, you, I would say I would like one. I'm not going to say anything else just because I'm pretty sure some places they are illegal. But yeah, ham radio gets very big and they are very, very, very cool. Really connects everybody. At the bottom left here is the flapper look was in style. These women of the flaming youth generation cultivated boyish figures, bobbed their hair, and rolled their silk stockings below the knee. Yeah, this was all the rage at the time. It was kind of to show um, a little bit of rebellion, a little bit of freedom to themselves. Um, very big at this time. Below here is the hero of the decade was Charles A. Lindbergh, third from the right. So third from the right. So 1, 2, 3, right there. Or did they mean this way? Ooh, now we know. From the right, so it'd be actually this guy right here. My bad. I miscalculated my rights. But anyway, uh, who made the first solo crossing of the Atlantic in an airplane? He left Roosevelt Field near Minalea, New York, in his Ryan monoplane, the Spirit of St. Louis, on the 20th of May, 1927, and reached Le Bourget Airfield near Paris on the 21st of May. His flying time was 33 and a half hours for the 3,610-mile trip. Yeah, Lindbergh, he's not really celebrated as much today, but he was a big deal. Big, big deal. Because of this flight, he proved, hey, it could work. Um, and such a cool guy. If you ever look at some stuff with him, definitely very cool. At the left here is Mary Pickford, the movie star, was called America's sweetheart. She is shown here with President Herbert Hoover. Yeah, poor Hoover. You know, he gets in and everything just goes to hell in a handbasket, you could say. Poor guy. At the left here is William Faulkner, one of America's most prominent novelists. He was awarded the Nobel Prize for Literature in 1949. Yeah, I mean, look at that mustache. Of course he was. Of course he was popular. Look at him. A man of his time, that's for sure. Right here is another Nobel Prize winner in 1954 was Ernest Hemingway. Yeah, Ernest Hemingway. What an interesting guy. Um, Sadly, the end of his life is very, very mired by a lot of sadness. But before that, uh, very interesting guy. Actually, during World War II, he gets on a boat with a machine gun and grenades to find German U-boats in the Gulf of Mexico. What a guy, you know. Just what a guy. That's all you can say about him. And then at the very bottom here is Stephen Vincent Benet. He was a poet and novelist whose most famous work was John Brown's Body. Yeah, he had that very famous mustache from the time. I know a funny mustached man from Austria that will become in charge of Germany will become very popular for it. But it was very popular at this time. So just so you know. But yeah, John Brown's Body, interesting read if you can ever read it. Very, very interesting read. At the bottom here is Herbert Hoover, the 31st President of the United States. Yeah, like I said before, poor Hoover. Just goes all to hell in a handbasket for him. But yeah, very interesting president nonetheless. But with that, that is going to do it for this video. If you guys liked the video, leave a like. If you have any ways I could improve on these videos, leave a comment down below. I appreciate your feedback. And as always, subscribe. It really does help out the channel. Thank you.